"Who's the blonde-headed kid?" he asked, "and who's Bennett?" Now, as a rule, people west of the Rockies avoid direct questions and prefer to learn by inference and by patient waiting. He who bluntly asks to find out what he wishes to know instead of trailing the information stealthily to the ground is usually put down as a greenhorn, or else he is an established man with a known reputation, a man born and bred in the West and possessed of sufficient fame to free him from the danger of being put down as a blockhead. The man to whom Ronicky Doone had put the question had never seen his face before that day. Nevertheless, no matter to what other conclusions he may have come, he decided that the olive-skinned youth was not a tenderfoot. The smile of cold derision and aloofness faded instantly from his lips, and he returned, "You're new to these parts, I reckon." "I'm plumb new," admitted Ronicky. "Bennett is the old gent tried to put Al Jenkins out of business 30 years back. But now Jenkins has come back after making a stake in Alaska gold. He sunk that gold right back in the oil range land, brought in the acres that Bennett had robbed him of, and now he's given Bennett some of his own medicine. And Bennett don't like it. This blonde-headed kid, well, I don't know. Every now and then Bennett gets some new hands, and they try to hold down jobs for a while on the ranch, but sooner or later they got to come to town. Well, partner, when they come to town they meet up with the boys, and the boys give 'em a pretty rough ride. You watch the way they handle Blondie when he sails in. Maybe he'll sashay into town as a peacock, but before he leaves Twin Springs I reckon some of the starch will be took out of him." He twisted himself from side to side in the ecstasy of his emotion. "Yes, sir. Something is sure going to happen to that gunfighter." "Gunfighter," echoed Ronicky. "You know this Blondie, then?" "Sure I don't. But I know that everybody out on Bennett's ranch has to know that when they wander into Twin Springs, they're going to have a rough ride. And the ones that come because they're all set for the party. They know well that the man that can ride into Twin Springs off in the ranch of old Steve Bennett and get out without having his guns and his spurs took from him is quite some party." He set his teeth to prove the strength of his own convictions on the matter. "Why," continued Ronicky, forced to raise his voice because of the gathering clamor, as new men came out from the interior of the hotel to hear the tidings, "why should the whole town be agin Bennett and for Al Jenkins?" "That's easy," responded his informant. "It works this way. The money that Al Jenkins sunk into Twin Springs is what brung it to life. You ought to have seen this here town a few years back. Any respectable junk dealer would have laughed himself to death if he'd have been asked to make a bid on it. There wasn't a piece of board in it that wasn't rotten. There wasn't a nail that wasn't rusted in two. Why? Just because the old toll road had been allowed to go bust, that's why. When the railroad picked out the falls as the place it was going to run through, why, everybody in Twin Springs just sat down and folded their hands and said, 'Here's where we slip off the map and get all rubbed out.' And that's what was happening, too. Twin Springs done just that same thing. It begun to die like a tree when the taproots cut. The old toll road was allowed to go to pieces. The rains of a couple of winters put a crimp in that roadbed and made every teamster take chances on cross-country rather than use the old toll road from here to the falls. Well, then along comes old Al Jenkins that Bennett had run out of the country a half a lifetime before. What did he do? Did he sit down and fold his hands in his lap like the rest of them? No, sir. 'If the old town is dead,' he says, 'we'll bring the old town back to life,' says he. And that is what he done, just as sure as if you'd read about him in the Bible. He climbed down into his purse and come up covered with gold and greenbacks. He spilled money everywhere, and everything that money touched turned green and began to put out shoots like springtime. Yes, sir, he was like irrigation. Old Al Jenkins, the first thing he done was to send out a gang to work on the toll road, and he got that back into better shape than it ever was before. It cost a sight of money, but he slicked it up as smooth as glass. He got all the old-timers that had used to team on it before the railroad went through, and he got them to tell him every good feature of the old road. After they told